Okay, so I get questions or emails regarding how I do the system of odor pays. So I'm going to first talk about a more traditional method, which is a box similar to this, where you have a hole right here, and the trainer or the handler would do things like lure the dog with the food or toy right here and draw it in so the dog's nose goes into this hole. While the dog's in here, they'll reward. It eventually goes into where you're fading from doing this to the dog has to go in, your hand goes in and you reward. There's another way, you have the ball popper. It's more like this. Dog's nose goes in, ball pops out. All of these things, and especially with a method like this, is information coming from the handler and a box and movement and a lure. And odor is way down that list. We have to fade these things out, and then eventually odor becomes the primary, where I want odor to be primary from the beginning. So typical issues that come from something like this is where the dog's face may get stuck in this hole, or as you were doing this game, dog's coming around this side trying to get to your hand. I want to avoid that as much as possible, and I want an efficient system for the dog to understand odor is what pays. So instead of doing this, and instead of having a box like this and a toy popping out, I want odor to be the most important thing. So for me, how I go about this is I use a box that many of you have seen done with the knee-po-po system. My odor is in my odor can or my shaker can, which is the same can that goes on my scent wheel or goes on the stands that I use. But I start off with this. The only thing in here is odor. When the dog puts its face where odor's at, it is reinforced. I can do direct reinforcement, tossing food or the toy into the box, or for me, I use a conditioned reinforcer, my marker. So when the dog goes in, has focus there, holds it for a second or so, I mark and I drop food in the box. This is repeated. I pull back the dog goes back in, goes to odor, I mark, drop food in the box. My very last rep, I do this, food, then my very last rep will be the mark and then toy. So I'm also in this phase, I'm going to try to handler proof the dog. So while the dog is learning this, I'm doing things like pulling on the leash. As I pull on the leash, the dog realizes the only place that pays is being at odor, and while they're in odor, they then get paid. In this other system, it is simultaneous, or I have reward there and then odor, or reward and odor together. What we have learned using basically understanding of how the dog associates, it's better to have the dog while it's in odor first, then receive the reinforcement versus having reinforcement and odor together. So in this system, the dog goes into odor first. While they're in odor, boom, they get reinforcement or the conditioned reinforcer, whatever you choose. So whether it be the box like this or the bigger version like this, the same thing happens. So I also have a third option. That option is I have a choice system. And in this approach, one has something in it, two does not. When the dog sniffs the target one, it's the same game. It gets reinforcement. It gets reinforcement. This system allows us to create a context. Stay here. I can still do the same thing with this. I'm also teaching differences here. And in this method, something has nothing and something has something. Has odor, no odor. When they pay attention to odor, they get reinforcement. But odor is first. Odor is primary, not a bunch of other stuff that we have to fade out and then eventually becomes odor. If you make odor the most important thing and you make odor the only place where reinforcement happens, no matter what you do, even if you do things like pull the leash or reach your hand in your pocket or reach your hand in your pouch, it doesn't matter. The dog understands the only place that they get reinforcement is by being at odor, focusing on odor, and having whatever indication behavior you want the dog to have. So I hope that clarifies it a little bit. Those that attend the classes at Ford Canine get all of this information plus lots of hands-on reps doing this with dogs. So if you have any additional questions, please feel free to contact me at Cameron@fordcanine.com.